Welcome in. It is day 74, and you're speaking with the Meeples Champion. Today, we're going to be jumping into a category of game that I haven't really discussed yet. It's definitely been one I've been interested in. I've only got a couple versions of the style game, and I wanted to hold off for a while and get kind of more of the basic games in first. But I do feel it's finally time. Today, we're going to be talking about Risk Legacy. Now, for those of you who don't know what a legacy game is, Legacy is a game that when you buy it, it usually comes with an outline saying you're going to play this game X amount of times before you truly know who the winner is. And at the end of those plays, when you have your winner, you will also have a custom board. So the concept of the game, if you know Risk, it is the setup of here's the different countries, and we're going to be fighting over it and trying to dominate the world. You know, your classic, move your people, roll the dice, see who wins. Now, back in the day, Risk was one of my favorite games, but that was the old, 90s. That was really like the epitome of gaming in a lot of ways. You hadn't really gotten, unless you were into Dungeons and Dragons, you really hadn't gotten a lot of games that allowed these strategies like the games of today do. Well, when Risk Legacy decided to come out, the concept of the game was crazy. You play 15 total games. When you're playing a game, you're going to start with your base and a small little group of people, and that's really it. There's a bunch of open space out there. You're not really dealing with, okay, we're everywhere. And your concept is you're going to win the game by being the first person to, I believe it was, 4 stars. So you're going to start with a star. Anybody who's never won the game before gets a star. It's an advantage so that if somebody does win the game, and then, say you're playing a 5-person adventure of this with, and 4 people win the first 4 games, that 5th person has an advantage because now they have a star when all the others don't anymore. So it's a catch-up mechanic to make sure somebody doesn't get completely blown away. The likelihood is everybody should get a victory within those first, 6 or 7 games, at least giving everybody an opportunity to compete so that the game is closer and you don't have a clear-cut winner by game 8. Now, the ways you can get the stars, there are various ways. You can turn in your sets like you would before for men, but now when you're doing this to get your additional troops, it's going to say, well, if you hit this number, you're going to get a star for that. Or if you conquer somebody else's base, you're going to get a star for that. Or when you make an army of a certain size. There's a bunch of ways to get stars. What's more important is that when you're playing the game, you have both your characters and you have the board, which can be marked up by stickers and by writing. So for instance, in my game, one of the first things I did when I won a game was I ended up choosing the option to name Australia, Space Australia, for those of you who are DBZ Abridged fans. And what it gave me was, for me alone, whenever I owned Australia, I had a +1 to my troops I would gain from that area for every game going forward. Now, when you win a game, you also get a nuke. A nuke means you can only use that nuke once per future game. So obviously, winner of game 1 has a nuke for 14 games. You can potentially get more than one, but at least that person has a pretty good advantage. And what it allows you to do is that you roll your dice, your opponent rolls theirs dice, and then you activate a nuke. It's been used for the game, and you take 1 die and you turn it to 6. So in the game, there is a huge list of things that it says, if you do this, you have to open up this pack. If you do that, you have to open up this pack. Well, everybody decided to nuke Australia at the same time. Essentially what happened was I was in a battle with somebody else. Somebody nuked it. I nuked it back to try to prevent it. Somebody else jumped in to help them and nuked it. And it said if there's 3 nukes in a battle, then you have to open up this rule and see what it says. What was the rule? Mutants. And they basically destroyed Australia for me. It had to be made as a whole hazardous area. Whenever you went in, half of your troops would die at the end of every round. However, we also added a new group in so you could be the mutants, and the mutants would actually grow more in there. So they not only could survive it, they would actually get additional troops for being there. So it was horrible because I was playing as a different group that didn't have that chance. And it really ruined my game plan going down the line. So this game is all about things like that, putting out new locations on boards, activating packs that allow you to completely change not only a country or a continent, but even adding in new spots on the board. All of a sudden something happens in the water and now you have a new place you can go to. The ability to have troops building up faster in certain spots. It's a really interesting play. It was one of the early Legacy games, and I really feel it's a fantastic game. Now, overall, I think that the game does take a lot of time, and you have to find a good committed group, and the hope would be to me to try to play this game in 4 weekends and say we're going to play all day and get 3 games in minimum. That way, by the end of 4 weekends, you can go, okay, we've done 12 games minimum. Hopefully you've gotten up to 15 games. You might have, because I found the first game of this we played in 20 minutes, but then there was other games we took 3 hours. So it was a variation of time. That's just where I'm thinking about it right now. It's been a game that I've definitely loved and enjoyed, but we have more than just my feelings about it. We have my categories. So why don't we jump in, discuss that a little bit, and see where it lands. First up is the art. Well, I love the box. The box is what sold me and my friends on picking it up in the first place. Now, we played a separate game. This is an unplayed game. It's been opened, but haven't opened up packs or anything like that yet. It's waiting for a new group for me to play it again. But we were sold by the front of this. We really liked the box. And the inside art was really nice too. The card art, the art of the board, the stickers that you're adding. I think they did a great job. Thumbs up. Your components. You've got your minis, which are really well put together. You've got your cards, which are good. They are terrible, but not easily terrible. It's because this game is literally set up to rip cards up. So as you're going through, it's telling you, oh, you've done this, grab these cards and rip them up and get rid of them forever. So you don't want to have cards that can't be torn. Some cards, obviously, every card can be torn. You can cut it. You can just throw it away. It's not like you have to tear it. But they wanted that feel so that when you're playing the game, you can tear a card and be like, oh, wow, this is changing. I like that. So I think they did a great job with their components. It's a thumbs up there. Your price. Now, when this first came out, it was around 60, maybe a little bit more than that. Might have been 70, which to me, for everything you're getting in the game and the craziness of the game, it was definitely worth it. It has dropped in money since then. You're going to find this for 50, maybe even 40. You go on to Amazon, you're going to probably find this, at reasonable prices there. Depending on the time of year, you might even get it down to that 25 range, because at one point, better and better Legacy games came out and people really lost interest in this game, and it just had an excess amount because it had done so well that they really printed up a bunch of copies, and then all of a sudden it was, we've played. We're not going to, often go and buy a second. I did, but I also didn't technically. My friend owned the first, and I bought the second. So I think that the price is definitely these days totally worth it. It's a thumbs up. Difficulty. I don't think it's difficult to learn, and I don't think it's difficult to play, but I think it's extremely difficult to win. It's pretty straightforward. You're playing Risk, so it's not a hard game to play. And there's a whole bunch of extra factors to it, and you got to make sure you're reading and keeping up. Okay, this is when we open this card, this is when you do this. But it outlines it very well. It's a very well-written book to let you know what to do next. No issue there. But what you do find is, can you strategize well? Can you think ahead to how to prep your person? It depends on how you play. When we played, we kept the faction we chose and never changed it. However, technically, you're supposed to draft your factions. So that was a house rule that we did because we just wanted to work on our own people. But you might decide okay, I know next game I'm going to be well enough that I can, in the draft order, definitely not get this faction. And you might choose to literally grab something to destroy it, to be like, okay, well, that ability was really good up top. I'm going to get this ability, and it's going to kind of offset it and kind of hurt them a bit, and then just not draft them next round. That's not a bad idea. There's a lot to it, and you definitely have to be thinking ahead. The other parts to it is, what are you going to make for deals? So for instance, I made a deal in a game. One of my friends was behind. They were the one that didn't really have a victory yet. I knew they had the advantage of the +1 star, which made them a threat to snake a game off of me or somebody else, but obviously me is the one that matters. So what I ended up doing is saying, hey, I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to let you walk in and take my base so that you can get that point. And then I'm going to make sure to defend your borders. We're going to get you a victory. And all I'm asking for in return is I'm going to get you up to year one. I want to win the next game immediately. So if I help you get your victory, you help me get mine. You don't have to let me walk in and get your borders or anything like that, but I want you to never attack me, and I want you to defend me on a side and basically be my big protection. And he was like, done. So we ended up doing it. It was great. It worked out. You know, he got his victory and tied everybody, and then I got my victory, took the lead again, and it was a really cool setup. The problem was I made another deal with somebody else, and during the game where they were supposed to help me after I had helped them, they totally betrayed me, which is fine because that's the concept of the game. So you have to know how to play these things and not get angry about people, going back on their word, because there is no rule about it. It's just you trying your best. So I think thumbs up on that difficulty. Replayability. This hits in two categories. Category 1, the game is meant to be replayed. You buy it to play it 15 times. And I think it's a fun game. It's constantly changing. You're going to get those 15 plays in. The question is, post those 15, are you going to play it again? I think this is a game that if you really love Risk, when you're done, you're going to have a custom board and you might want to pull it out and play once in a while. But in general, I think it's about those 15 plays. But I think those 15 plays are going to take, it took us a year. So we literally were playing it like once a month for roughly a year, maybe every 3 weeks. I really think the replayability is there. That's the design of a legacy game. It's a thumbs up. Your keys to victory. There are a lot. And at the end of the day, it's always about just getting the 4 stars of the round so that you can win that round. So I think that there's nothing that doesn't work, because if it gives you a star, you're 25% of the way to getting that round. I don't see anything wrong with it. It works for me. Thumbs up. Unique. When this game first dropped, I would have said yes. Because even though it was Risk, it was so different in the way that it was approached that it was amazing. But now, today, we have Risk. We have loads of options on Risk games. You can play your Game of Thrones Risk. You can play your Walking Dead Risk. You can play your futuristic Risk. But then you also have loads of legacy options. And while I wouldn't compare one legacy game to another, because that's the whole point of legacy, is they join up with different games every time, both sides of this exist elsewhere. It's not unique anymore. You can play Risk, or you can play a game that allows what Risk Legacy does with the legacy side. And that's why I don't get it to the table right now, because I haven't found a group that wants to do this. I have Clank Legacy. We've been playing that because when we were thinking of a legacy game, they were down for Clank. And if I want to just play a Risk game, Risk Legacy is not one you're going to pull out because it's not as easy to compete with those other ones. It's not unique to me. It's been replicated enough with these other style games before it and after it that at the end of the day, it's not a unique game. So it's got to be a thumbs down. Overall, what do I think about this game? I really like this game. I think this is a game that is definitely worth your time, but you do not have to play it. There are enough other legacy games. I would totally recommend your Clank Legacy over this every day of the week. That being said, if you like a good war game and you want one that has that twist, go for this because it's fun. I just wouldn't invest the money if you find that it is 40 or more. If you can find this for 20, 25, 30, grab it. But once you hit that 40 range, figure out who your group is and say to the group, let's buy it together, let's play it until it's done, and the winner gets to keep the game. Because now you're only spending, let's say it's the full initial price, $70 potentially. Okay, we're spending 14 apiece, we're getting a year of fun out of it, and you won, here's the game. Now you have this game that's not really going to get to the table very often, but at least you have a unique game and it's yours. I think that's a better way to play it. That's just my opinion, though. Everybody out there, this has been on for enough years. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure you've seen it. Maybe even some of you have either played it or actually sat around and watched others play it. Get your own opinion. Feel out what you really think this game ends up being today. And decide if it's worth your time and your money. Well, today has been day 74. And we have been talking about Risk Legacy. And you've been speaking to the Meeples Champion. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm going to add down below in the description the Amazon link in case you do want to go pick this up for yourself. Until next time, I'll talk to you tomorrow.